So I do want to thank Scott Ernest for funding these workshops. I've not been able to come in person until this time because of COVID and other things, but I've watched some of the online afterwards, and there's just some incredible work that people have presented of successes in designing out hazards ahead of time and actually making the work good for the survival of the business. You know, not only do we want to save workers' lives, limbs, and lungs, but we want to have jobs for them to do in successful businesses. And PTD fills those roles. So, all right, this is the design of my briefing. We'll see how the actual construction of it turns out. One point I want to make is that my office, that I'm the coordinator for prevention through design, is not construction specific, whereas Scott is construction specific. Although I did do, in 2007, I became the safety and health manager for the Europe district, and I did a whole lot of construction site visits, a whole lot of construction training and PTD training as well. So, and I'll tell you a story about my dad at the end, who was a designer and a builder. Now, I realize I'm preaching to the choir here. You folks know the importance of PTD, but I was kind of requested to go through some of these history slides, so I hope you enjoy them. There is a bit of a funny story at the end. PTD is not new. I mean, if you go back to the Code of Hammurabi, if you build a house and it falls down and kills someone, well, we're going to kill you, Mr. Designer. And that's not quite a design code. It's a punitive code, but PTD is implied. And then you look forward quite a bit further to what I call Hammurabi 2.0, where DuPont required that the manager of an explosives plant live on site with their family. So that's kind of punitive as well, but trying to get at the same point of, hey, keep things from going wrong. Now, if you come quite a bit forward from a few hundred years from Hammurabi, actually, the reason that I have this slide, I was doing construction safety training in Israel. And after the end of this, it was a 4 or 8 hour class, I forget, a gentleman came up to me afterwards, and he talked to me about how we are supposed to be our brother's keeper. And that's a scriptural reference. So I talked to him some more about that, learned some more of their history, did a little digging myself. I ran across the parapet quote here, and so I kind of made his history my own. And so here, when you build a new house, put a parapet around the roof so that someone does not fall off and die. Now that's a design code. It's very interesting, that far back. Coming forward to the Industrial Revolution. I mean, PTD has been practiced so much in some ways, when you just look at these slides anyway. This is a cool example. John Gambatese pointed this out to me. It comes from a UNESCO World Heritage Site nomination for this Pontcysyllt Aqueduct in Wales, England. And during the Industrial Revolution, Mr. William Jessup was well known for his expertise in aqueduct construction, and this is a really high valley they went across. Thomas Telford, anybody ever heard of Thomas Telford? Engineer. He's very famous in engineering history anyway, but at this time he was relatively unknown. And what happened was William Jessup hired him on to manage this project. And William Jessup went out to the site and saw the workers standing on a 6-foot by 10-foot area way up that high, finishing the construction on top. And he said, well, they weren't quite, maybe, I don't know, maybe they were 60% through the construction. And he came back and he recommended to his new site engineer that they redesign the top structure because it's terrifying to the workers and, of course, very dangerous also. So they did redesign the structure, and they actually ended up saving money in the process as well. But they gave strong attention to the safety of the workers at the time, and this is Industrial Revolution. There's two lessons out of this, besides the obvious PTD one, is that Thomas Telford, being the famous engineer, he was relatively unknown, benefited from mentorship from engineer William Jessup. William Jessup, well known at that time, and he didn't seek his own praise. He was kind of a modest guy. He wasn't threatened by young engineers with new ideas, not threatened by them at all. He would take them on, and he would try to develop them. And that's what he did. And then Thomas Telford ends up being this famous engineer. I lived in Telford, Pennsylvania, named after him. And another lesson has to do with the idea of being a master builder. And both of these folks could be considered master builders. And what that meant was you were aware of everything going on. You didn't do everybody's, detailed work. You weren't a micromanager, but you did go out to the site. You weren't just a designer and then you pass it on, you forget the rest. You went out to the site and you see some issues. It's just second nature. You say, you know what? I can change the design on that. It's not like even a program. It's just being aware of what's going on. So there's the mentorship, the value of mentorship with younger folks coming up, and then there is also the master builder concept. But, with all of that great background, now that we're so advanced and we have green buildings and everything, we must be doing PTD wonderfully all the time. It's like, wait a second. What in the world? Where are the parapets? Where's the railings? Okay, skylights, unguarded, walkways right next to them. How about this guy? Whatever happened to Moses 1.0? We have new technologies and we can forget old lessons. I've sometimes wondered if, they have a nylon reinforced hose and they gave him training on how to, hold on tight if he fell off the roof. But if you see that car down there, he is way up there, man. This is crazy. Now, I say this history bit was kind of requested. Well, there's another slide here I want to show you too, which just amazed me. And this is reminds me of the phrase, we've always done it this way. And this is a photograph from June, New York City, of a freewheeling pulley way up there with a rope. And it was a photograph at a different site, but earlier that day or that month, a gentleman was using one of these pulleys to pull up a load of shingles, lost his grip, lost his footing, shingles came down, broke his collarbone, and I couldn't believe that a freewheeling pulley. It's called a well wheel in New York City because that's how you used to pull up the bucket in the wells. And it's like, are you telling me there's no ratchet, there's no brake, there's no clutch on this thing? I couldn't believe it. So obviously, they did find a solution with a pulley called Secure Pulley that's got a braking system, etc. But it's the phrase, we've always done it this way. We just didn't think to do it any differently. This amazed me. And these history slides were requested by a gentleman, many of you know, T.J. Lyons over here. And TJ called me up and he said, Jonathan, would you be interested in being considered to be one of the speakers here? I like your humor and your arrogance. And I'm thinking, whoa, first thing I'm thinking is, how arrogantly do I represent NIOSH? Yikes, but then I considered the source, okay? You need to get to know TJ, all right? I considered the source, and it's like, what he was referring to, I think, are these history slides, where I get to something like this, and it's like, hey, what are you doing, buddy? Come on, get with the program. It's like, I tell people, come on, don't forget old lessons, But, TJ, maybe you're not a New Yorker, but I think of you as a New Yorker, all right? Well, I'm a Jersey boy, okay? I grew up 18 miles from the Big Apple. I'm practicing, my New York accent here a little bit. I watched the Twin Towers go up, actually. I could see them that far away. And so, I consider your comment to be high praise, coming from you. He did say later, he said, actually what I meant was, rather than, arrogance, I meant kind of, you have competence and confidence like Dirty Harry when he comes to the scene. It's like, okay, so now I'm an arrogant, Dirty Harry. That really worked out well, TJ. Anyway, thank you. So what about NIOSH? A little bit of history at NIOSH. There were some Einsteins, and there still are in PTD. And some of those folks were involved in a 10-year effort the National Safety Council had that culminated in this textbook you see on the left side, Safety Through Design, STD. And then that 10-year effort came to an end. And people at NIOSH, Rick Reinhardt, Dr. Paul Schulte, picked up the idea and said, hey, all you folks involved in this STD group, you want to join us? We're changing the name to PTD. There's different reasons for that, but you might just imagine being part of Centers for Disease Control. STD doesn't make a really great acronym, for us to go forward with. So we changed it to PTD, which I like, Prevention Through Design. Donna Heidel, over here, who's going to speak soon, then took over the program and did an amazing job there with workshops, big workshops with all kinds of industry players and strategic plans. And also, during your time there, I think, this first edition of the Z590.3, Prevention Through Design standard came out, which is foundational. It is very, very important. So thank you, Donna. As Dr. Howard says, designing out hazards is the most effective way to protect people. Now, I won't go into the 10 industry sectors, but my office is responsible for trying to advance PTD in any industry. But when I think, yes, I have some construction background, so that's near and dear to me. But also when I think of all of these industry sectors, they all rely on facilities design and construction. And as I look at the work that's been presented in the past few years here, you don't just focus on eliminating hazards during construction and saving money through modular work, etc., but you also focus on the design of the facility for operations and maintenance. So your work here, even though construction and design focused, is actually bringing PTD into every industry sector here. So these workshops I consider to be highly valuable for PTD in general across all industries. I'd like to just quickly go through some products that we have. And the first one really is revisions to our website that we are making. And that's kind of a product too, because that's what people see. On the left-hand side, we've completely updated our what we call a program portfolio site. And in the lower left, a PTD award site is up to date. We have our publications and resources page on the right, which includes, you'll see some things like, your workshop here. A lot of what you folks do is on that page. But there's another page, it's the main landing page for our, what we call our PTD topic pages, which is not totally updated yet. And I'd like to walk through some of the PTD concepts that I have written on this page, which is hopefully going to be up in a couple months. It's going through a review now. Now, being an engineer and a guy who built my own stereo system and an ignition system for my mom's car and all this, and my dad being a designer of our house and other things, I love design. I just love design. But most of my career has been safety and health, management, monitoring, training. I haven't really done much behind a drawing board or a CAD screen, and I haven't done on-site construction management other than just checking on, contract monitoring for the Corps of Engineers. And I think that lack of experience in on-site construction management is probably a disadvantage that a lot of safety and health people have. They don't have that type of management system that would allow them to better have a good idea how to build PTD into the existing management system of a company. So you have that. You have that in your background in construction, and that's a great advantage. But I was asked when I came to NIOSH, what's the difference between prevention through design and normal, everyday, long, decades-old industrial hygiene and safety management? Is it just the hierarchy of controls? We want to move toward the top. Nice idea. Is that all PTD is about? And I know it's more than that, but I've kind of thought, well, how do I explain it better? And obviously, when you move toward the top of the hierarchy, you're looking more to the source of the hazard rather than the receiver or the worker at the other end. And that's great, obviously, but that doesn't make PTD unique either. If you look a little further, you can get closer to what PTD brings to the table, and that is you're doing it during planning, during design. You're asking the question, what kind of hazards might we face here? And you're getting the right people around the table to collaborate on identifying hazards, coming up with alternatives, etc., rather than waiting until the end during operations when you put on PPE. And then something TJ said, he said we need to eliminate the must trust factor. And I love that. What it means, that like the guy who dropped that well wheel in New York City, lost his footing, lost his grip. He had a lot of things that you had to trust. You must trust that everything goes right for that to be safe. First of all, it is his grip and his footing. It's also the ground. It's also the weather. It's also his strength. It's also the wind. There's a ton of things that you must trust go right for there to be any kind of degree of safety on that job. So we want to eliminate the must trust. And I call that really making a more passive design where the management and workers don't have to do anything to be safe. Even engineering controls, some of them require more actions to put them into play than others. And yet, when you think about the idea of making controls more passive, it's really valuable at any level of the hierarchy. Even PPE can be made easier to maintain, easier to inspect, easier to more comfortable to wear. These things that can add a little more passive, less actions required. So that's PTD too, at any level. And then, obviously, when we talk about doing it at the design stage, in planning, this is the real key to PTD. And the Z590.3 standard, which came out, was really based on something called system safety. Now, when I was in the military, I obviously did risk assessment like all of us, but I learned risk management by studying the system safety standard, the MIL standard 882, which isn't just military, it's used around the world for system safety. However, that standard is more for aerospace companies, nuclear, reactors, for chemical plants, the kinds of things that can blow up neighborhoods. And it's a bit more complex than we need for worker hazards day to day in all kinds of businesses. So the Z590.3 PTD standard lays out great processes to do this hazard identification and elimination up front. And what I illustrate in this little diagram here is something called a design safety review that's in that standard. And it's just a simplified system that is not difficult for folks to follow through. Now, you have your systems in construction, so you can integrate PTD into it. Those who don't, it's a great place to go, the Z590.3, and there's a system for you. There's more, though. As a very persuasive sales lady once told my family and myself, but that's not all. There's more. You've seen Simbersky's slide about economics. You have more effect up front, and it costs less up front than later on to influence safety and health. And there's another arrow for the hierarchy of controls. The business value is typically best up top because, think about it, there is simply less to buy, less to maintain, and less to do as you get further up that hierarchy. Now, sometimes there are simple calculations you can make to show some cost advantages. And you can also go to such tools as the CPWR Return on Investment Calculator, the OSHA Safety Pays program. But what if we had a tool that would help you walk through the PTD risk assessment process and even give some weighting to higher levels of the hierarchy, and then, yes, help you, do some benefit cost analysis, return on investment, payback period for your boardroom presentation, and even help you identify some non-financial advantages of PTD. That would be really cool. Well, we have a deal for you. This is just an outline of a tool that's available now for free. Early funding was by NIOSH, but Elise Biddle and Georgi Popov are the main authors of this tool. And it came out last year, introduced at the American Industrial Hygiene Conference in Nashville. And they are the ones who are hosting this on their website for free, right there. They call it the AHA Business Case in EHS Tool, and it is very PTD focused. There's 2 videos, one that gives you some background to it, another one that walks you through a case study. The case study is built right into this spreadsheet. It's a spreadsheet tool. You can even customize the thing, just unhide the tabs at the bottom, and then you'll be able to see everything that's going on, and you can customize it yourself. But let Georgie know about your suggestions, and he'll make it even better. But it's exciting to me to have extra weighting for higher levels of the hierarchy, also to walk people through the risk assessment process, and help people think through the non-financial benefits, your corporate image, your community image, your worker morale, all these types of things. So it's a great tool. So what I've gone through there is some concepts that are going to show up on our new PTD landing page, and this business case tool. It's published by AHA, but it's a partnership product also with NIOSH. Some other products, if you will, would be our PTD award. The first year, Fred Manuel, it was a non-competitive. He was one of the prime authors of that STD book you saw up front, but he's done so much on the Z590.3 standard and everything else is safety. He was still writing books in his 90s. He's still alive, and he's got lots of ideas if you want to talk to him. He's a wonderful guy. So non-competitively. It was an obvious choice for the first award. Last year was competitive, had 8 nominees, and Georgi Popov, another PTD Einstein, won, and he was the chair of the latest revision of the Z590.3, as well as that business case tool I just showed you, and a whole lot of other things. This year, we are doing our award presentation live for the first time in New Orleans, October 23rd, Monday morning, 10:30 at the Convention Center. If you're not there, it'll be on YouTube later. I can't tell you who the winner is, but the 3 award partners are National Safety Council, ASSP, and NIOSH, and we have chosen the winner. We changed a couple things for 2023 and going forward. We allowed for more than one winner so that another PTD Einstein doesn't push out of business from getting also awarded. And we do have a business getting the award this year. We also changed one other thing in that when they put in the nomination package, we asked them, do we have your permission to publish this, to develop it as a case study, etc., which leads me to our next product. These are nominees from 2022. Mr. Bruce Main, another PTD Einstein, Georgie, who won it, and New York City Department of Environmental Protection. They have the largest water and wastewater system in the country, and they've been working on a PTD program for years. Wonderful. Park Health and Safety for facility design templates, best practices. Port of Portland for some work on their airport, PDX Next. Tesla redesigned an automobile, the Model Y, to avoid ergonomic hazards with their workers. They can stand upright and assemble the interior of the vehicle, and then the floor pan goes in after all that. And a recycling company in Florida, small business. For this year, we have wonderful nominations from 3M, San Francisco Public Utilities Commission, Portland PDX Next Airport, resubmitted. And yes, people can resubmit. Bob Moser's got some exciting things he wants to resubmit for Jacobs Engineering. We had a PTD researcher, Automotive Lift Institute. So who will win? Well, either show up or look at the YouTube afterwards. We do have a case studies project that is close to publication. There'll be 6 case studies here. Most of them have a business case as well, some financial figures, etc. And this is just the beginning to build other case studies with. There's a template included in the product that gives people, an idea of the kinds of things we'd like them to tell us about with their successes in their business. And then some of the PTD award nominees are going to end up in this case study site as well. There are some more textbooks that have PTD in them. The ones on top are relatively new. The second one, Patty's Industrial Hygiene, Georgi Popov again, he wrote the first ever chapter. That's like for PTD and Patty's, and that Patty's is like the Bible for industrial hygienists. The first one on the left, upper left, I wrote a chapter with some other folks there. It's kind of a cool book because it's intended not for safety and health people, but for urban planners and architects. So our chapter was making healthy workplaces. And I put as much PTD in there as they would allow me to with the word limits. They wanted me to cover everything else in health and safety, going back in history, present day, forward in history for every demographic. So I put as much PTD as I could in there. And then standards work continues to always be important. Next week, we have our second meeting for the revision that's underway for the Safety and Health Management System, the ANSI Z10, up in Chicago. We're revising that again. Last time was 2019. A lot more PTD in there now in the 2019, and there'll probably be some more in the next version also. And then, obviously, we work closely with ASSP and the others on the updates to the Z590, which was updated in 2021. One cool thing that happened when we revised the last version of the Z10, and when you think of PTD and planning and thinking ahead, anytime you have an occupational health and safety management system, it kind of implies we're talking about planning and thinking ahead. PTD is part of that anyway. But one cool thing we were able to do is actually publish for the first time ASSP has ever had a free downloadable. And it is a short version of the Z10 standard for small businesses. And in the lower right, there's a picture of my dad up on the roof building my house. He made it into this standard. What I'm hoping to do for the Z590 PTD standard is also have a small, free, kind of simplified version that'll also be freely downloadable. And it can be for smaller businesses. It can also be a stepping stone for folks as they build their program and then go to the full standard. Also, we're trying to take a product and put it in website form, and this product has to do with PTD and capital project processes. And this has been out for years on the Design for Construction Safety site that Mike Toole runs. That came out of the OSHA Construction Alliance Roundtable. And Mike Toole keeps that website up to date. And that product's available there, but we're hoping to actually put it in website form also, to hopefully reach a wider audience. We're showing how to do PTD in large projects, large facility design projects. We also have some more educational modules. There's 4 in design and construction that have been available for a while. Agriculture is getting super close. We have an electrical systems one that applies a lot in construction, but across all sectors. That'll be out hopefully in a year or so. And then there's a nanomaterials one, drafted. Which brings me to some of my last slides here. I have 2 people in my office. We cannot produce products for each of the 10 industry sectors. So we have to think, what is the best use of our time? And what we are going to do, and what we're starting on now, is trying to identify all the PTD work that's been done in NIOSH, that is being currently done in the past, and try to encourage more in the future and to identify it as PTD as well. They can publish as case studies, et cetera. And we kind of call it it was PTD all along. I mean, what's our business in safety and health? What's the business of OSHA, NIOSH? Is it to focus on workers laying in a hospital bed or focus on workers laying in a funeral home? No, it's to prevent them from getting there. So in a sense, our whole mindset's about PTD. And this is what we're going to focus on, bring out all that goodness that's in NIOSH there. But we'll still do special project and continue our important collaborations, such as with you folks right here. Also with OSHA, there's a lot of great stuff going on with OSHA. Tim Irving's here. Thank you for coming, Tim. And CPWR, National Safety Council, ASSP, AIHA. Notice, AIHA is listed as a PTD award partner. That's because, as of October, they will become the 4th partner in the PTD award program. And then we've been working also with Purdue University on chemical engineering, PTD. To conclude, since when I was in Europe, I realized that the United Kingdom was saving 3 times as many lives in construction than the continental European Union and then the United States. And before I left Europe, it was up to 5 times as many. So I talked to some contractors who worked in the US, worked in Europe, worked in the UK, and asked about some differences. And they said, well, the training and the workplace inspections are really great. Of course, I know workplace inspections can sit in somebody's box and not get fixed. I've seen that. So I knew there had to be a real management accountability also. But what I didn't quite get for a while is that they have required PTD over there since 1994. So the construction fatality rate since then has improved by multiples, not by just, increments. And although you can't say, well, correlation is causation, I don't know how much of that's due to PTD. We know that when we eliminate hazards, we're going to help people. We're going to prevent those lives, limbs, and lungs. You can just look at the success we've had with OSHA in the US since 1970. A lot of things have gotten better. A lot of people have gone home safe that wouldn't have otherwise. So here's the stats I looked at last, 6 times the life savings. Sometimes you may wonder, do I make a difference? If you have investigated fatalities, as I have, you don't forget those. You know where somebody lost a limb, lost a life. But you don't know when you saved a life. However, I'm showing you the proof that you make a difference. When you do something different in safety and health, you save lives. There it is, the proof. I verified this on a family, this is not NIOSH verification, this is family vacation verification. I was very impressed with construction work going on at the Edinburgh Castle. And I stopped and talked to Bill there, and my family took a picture, and I said, hey, these are the things I know about the UK. Is this what's responsible for saving lives? He says, yeah, you got it, that's right. So, yeah, absolutely. Now, family vacation standards did not include last names. So forever he's Bill Edinburgh. I don't know his last name. Final slide here. So what? Saving lives and protecting families. Every worker here wants to go home safe, sound to their loved ones, as does their loved ones want to receive them. And there's one picture there that's a little older than the rest. It's on the right in the middle. A tall gentleman, the little kid is me, and the tall gentleman is my dad. And when I was 11, and he was just turned 40, he died from a preventable construction hazard. And I know the effect, as do you, when sometimes you've lived long enough to see accidents happen and loved ones hurt or taken. But you make a difference. The work that you do keeps people going home. And you're saving lives, and you're preserving families. So I thank you for the work you do, and I just say, keep it on. And that's all I have.